This week we'll look at the man in charge of 80s teen films. John Hughes Week will come up right after this break. The verdict. I'm Elizabeth Pegram.
I'm Devontae Banks.
And I'm Jeralyn Johnson.
Now, John Hughes was an interesting man. The Chicago filmmaker started his career in film with the raucous and controversy-ridden National Lampoon, and then he transitioned into making earnest works about the nature of growing up, the cold, hard truths and the funny ones that go along with being a somewhat functional person.
Today, we start the show with the cult classic Pretty in Pink. Pretty in Pink is a 1986 romantic comedy about love and social cliques in American high schools in the 1980s. It features the soundtrack that is dubbed as one of the best in modern cinema, and a story that stands to be the test of time. Here is your trailer for Pretty in Pink.
I love this woman. I love this woman, and I have to tell her. And if she laughs, she laughs.
It makes it easier to bear.
Feel any better if I asked you to the prom?
His name's Blaine. He's so beautiful.
Blaine? Oh, that's a major appliance. That's not a name.
You won't regret it, no. Some girls, they don't forget it.
Does he have strong lips? Strong lips.
It's too weird for me, you know. Maybe this shouldn't happen.
You know, maybe it doesn't happen all the time, but it doesn't mean it isn't right? This is not the time to get serious over some Nimrod.
He's gonna use you and then throw you away.
You're ashamed to be seen with me.
I am
You're
not.
ashamed to go out with me.
Squeeze her, don't tease her, never leave her.
You like him, he likes you. What his friends think shouldn't make any difference.
I just want to let them know that they didn't break me.
Just don't write love songs like they used to.
So the thing I love about Pretty in Pink is that John Hughes really focuses in on social classes. Like Molly Ringwald's character, she was really poor, and Blaine, I don't really know the actor's name who played him, but he was a really rich guy. And it's just a pattern in all of John Hughes' movies, I've noticed. But one of my favorite characters of all time in this movie is Ducky. I think that he is perfect. He embodies everything you want in a man, and like it's just great because he's there for you. It's like he's just the adorable friend. And then you have James Spader, who is like the villain. He is awful. He's mean. He's very attractive, but he's mean. Like he's kind of like the guy who just pokes at at Blaine, and he's like, you don't really. He's the environment that causes like the turmoil that causes like with the relationship starting. Like he kind of sets it back from starting, and it's full of emotion. It's really heartfelt, but it's ultimately not incredibly unrealistic. So, what did you guys think about it?
Oh, well, yeah, of course I really liked it because it may be a little unrealistic as high school wasn't quite like that, but that's of course what we wanted it to be. And I'm the same way, like I loved Ducky, okay? And and the whole time I'm holding out for the movie, I'm thinking maybe Andy and Ducky, maybe they're gonna be a thing. And then of course we see that, she gets the guy she wants. But what about Ducky?
What about Ducky?
What about you?
Here's the thing, Ducky is one of the worst characters in movie history. And I wish he ended up alone. He didn't deserve anyone to dance with. Look, I like John Hughes. I have a love-hate relationship with his movies. There are some movies that are classics. This is not one of them, in my opinion. Even Molly Ringwald agrees with me, by the way. So it's like she wrote an entire essay agreeing with the same thing. Look, the characters in this movie betray themselves constantly, which I get. Like, you're a teenager, things change. But the movie goes out of its way to have its characters betray themselves. Like, for example, I didn't want Molly Ringwald to get with Ducky, obviously. Plus, John Cryer has like the most annoying face ever. like John Cryer is so annoying. He made Charlie Sheen likable. Just think about that. but like the movie, it like steers you into this direction of like, oh, they're going to get together, and then they don't, which I had no problem with because I don't like the character of Ducky. But the lesson that the movie is trying to give you, it completely betrays that by having her end up with Blaine. Which, as a character, I actually kind of liked him, but I love James Spader in this movie. I could watch James Spader do anything. I could watch him eat cereal. And I feel like he's the only redeeming quality. That and the costume department from the movie.
Yeah, I mean, you like Blaine. I mean, he's okay, but then there's that part in the movie where he's like, he's second guessing it because here we are with the same scenario that we've seen, about 1,000 times. The poor girl or guy is wanting the rich or the rich girl or guy, and it's like that forbidden love that we see. And I guess there's a part of us that we want to see that happen because there is, it is sort of unforbidden. But then there's Ducky. And then, he's what makes me not even really care about this forbidden love. I'm like, but he's been here the whole time. Exactly. And, he's done a lot for her. And this rich kid, Blaine, over here, he's a little flaky. And then Ducky could swoop in and save the day, which he does in the end, but not the way that you would want.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts is whenever Ducky, they're in the record store and he starts singing. That's the best, one of the most iconic scenes from that movie. But, I really hated Blaine at first, but then he kind of grew on me. I was like, he's not just this jerk. He really likes her, but then he has friends like James Spader, and he's like, you don't want to be with her. But really, he was just upset because Andy, Molly Ringwald's character, didn't want to be with him in the beginning. So he was just really salty and was like, no, you can't have her. But that's the whole thing. You want what you can't have, and that's the whole message of it. But it really focuses in on those social classes. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you want to be with someone and they want to be with you, they're going to make it happen. It's going to happen. So I think it's a really beautiful, heartfelt message that all these girls croon over. We're like, this love story is great. But then you're like, what about Becky?
Yeah. And
he's the cute friend that you always want to have feelings for, but you can't. You're like,
and
I did not feel anything but contempt for that character. I don't see why you guys like that character so much. I feel like John Hughes movies, the ones I do like, they kind of live in this rich complexity of these teenage characters, and this one just felt so basic. You know what I mean? It just felt he's rich, she's poor, there's conflict, but they get together. No.
Yeah.
To me, the movies I do like in his filmography, and it sounds like I don't like him. I promise I like John Hughes, but the movies I do like in his filmography are the ones where he really digs into emotional complexity. And the most complex character you have in this movie probably is James Spader's character, which isn't that complex. He's just a guy who got rejected, who was just being a jerk.
Well, I guess, me and Jeralyn are more of the sappy, we just want to look at, just the big picture, oh yay, love. But you want to break it down. And I totally get that though, because it is really basic. But I think there's something about that I really do like. I can't, that's one of my guilty pleasures. It was basic, not so original, but it's fun to watch.
Well,
and,
Well, with me, when it comes to movies like that, because there are some movies where it's the relationship between people, you just love them both so much, you fall in love with both characters. The Before series, even parts of La La Land, you're I just want these people to be together. But I don't know, basically, a lot of the characters in this movie are just super annoying. Especially Molly Ringwald's character is a loser. It's not even the fact that she's poor, it's just the fact that she's uninteresting is the reason that people don't want to be with her, I feel. You know what I mean? There's other movie characters that have these obstacles, but they're just so cool. In West Side Story, both of the main characters in there are just so cool. You're I want them to be together. So when things happen, and by the way, you can't say I spoil West Side Story, but when they obviously don't end up together, it makes you feel sad. So in a movie where it's they do end up together, I just wanted to feel that rush of just yes. But honestly, the only thing I could think of was Blaine. You could do so much better.
Oh, she makes her own clothes, though.
She does.
She works at a record store, which was super hip for the 80s. That was a big thing. But, she's that pretty girl that, those awkward, loser types that sort of want to relate to that. They're yeah, look, she's pretty. She's making her own clothes, and she ends up with the guy she wants. Man, that's me. And then just forget about, friend zone and Ducky or whatever.
Well, to me, it's weird because it's like there's other John Hughes movies with Molly Ringwald because they work together a lot, where she is playing a character who's kind of dorky, but who is so much more likable. To me, it's not like the actress. To me, it's just the writing for this character.
Right.
Which, like I said, if you're getting mad at me at home, Molly Ringwald agrees with me. She wrote an entire essay about why this is a bad character ultimately.
Oh, well.
So, I mean, like, why did you guys like the characters in this?
Well, yeah, just because it is, for basic, I did kind of like that, to be honest with you. Yeah, but I mean, that's about the gist of it. I mean, I like it, guilty pleasure, wasn't the greatest, but it was that sweet little teen movie I can watch and rewatch every now and then, but of course I liked it.
Well, I would say, like, personally, I give it a 3.5 out of 5. John Hughes at his worst is better than, like, so many people at their best. But next we have the classic Thanksgiving film, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Now, the film stars Steve Martin as Neil Page, a high-strung marketing executive who meets Dale Griffith, played by the excellent John Candy, an optimistic, outgoing, shower curtain reading salesman. They share a 3-day odyssey of trying to get Neil home to Chicago in time for Thanksgiving with his family. Here's your trailer for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
During holiday travel, some people get delirious, some get delayed, and some get Del Griffith.
American Light and Fixture, Director of Sales, Shower Curtain Ring Division.
Neil Page got all 3.
I was on my way home to spend a nice holiday with my family. Instead, I'm in a motel bed with a stranger.
So instead of Thanksgiving with his family, he's spending 3 days with the turkey.
2 happy clams just whistling down the road.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the Marconi family.
Paramount Pictures presents
Wilma!
Steve Martin.
You ever been to Hawaii?
Yeah.
You see Don Ho while you were there?
See the second show, that's the best one.
Is that right?
Yeah.
John Candy.
Why are you holding my hand? Where's your other hand? Between 2 pillows. Those aren't pillows.
In a new film by John Hughes. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
So, me and John Hughes, with his filmography, I have a love-hate relationship with him. So many movies I feel like just have weak characters and weak plot points. Luckily, this is not one of them. This is one of his best movies, in my opinion, one of the best movies of all time. Look, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I think works for so many reasons, but one of the main ones is John Hughes is on unequal footing. Normally, he gets to rely on his sacred backdrop of Chicago, which they do go to, but I like the fact that since this is a road movie, he's out of his element, he's working with actual adults, so he has to pull from different parts of his own soul to like kind of write this story. And plus you have Steve Martin and John Candy as your 2 leads. I mean, it's almost impossible not to fall in love with these 2 characters. Honestly, if you don't like this movie, you're probably soulless. How did you guys feel about it?
Well, yeah, I did like it, of course, because you gotta love John Candy. He's just, I would, that friendly uncle, because I'm thinking of like Uncle Buck, I guess, but he's just that friendly, that nice, that big guy, just a big teddy bear that you can't help but love. And even in this movie, they try everything to make him just so unbearable for Steve Martin's character. And that's what's almost sort of like so frustrating the whole time, because like he's got to deal with this. And then he's just, not only is he just, it's one after another. And then John Candy comes in, but he makes it better. Like at first, we just got to get past that really annoying stuff. But he's just such a lovable character, and I love me some John Candy for sure. And I don't know, what did you feel about it?
I love John Candy. I love this movie because I think it was such a cute film. Like I think, I'm trying to think of it's just he was so friendly and he was like really sweet, and he tried so hard to be like that guy to help him, to help Steve Martin through this whole thing. And
yeah.
He just got overlooked all the time, and he just came off as annoying, but really he was just like, hey, let me help you, and I'm that way too, so I completely like relate with that, because I'm like, when I see people struggle, I'm like, let me take care of everything that you're going through, let me be that person, and they're like, back off.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel about it. But I mean, like I said, they turned this movie into another movie later on, like called Due Date with Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis, and It's so funny, but it's the exact same plot where you have this guy who's just trying to get somewhere at a certain time frame, and then you have this nuisance who comes along and you're like, get away. And I just think it's really funny the way that they tied it all in. They made it work, definitely, but this is like the OG. This is the original. It's great.
Oh yeah, and me, I'm a sucker for just road movies in general.
Yeah.
But also having Steve Martin as a straight man is a really inspired choice. I mean, he's one of the most gifted, just most talented people to ever live. So to actually have him just kind of pull it back for this movie, I thought was really great because it gives John Candy so many amazing moments. And some of Steve Martin's reactions, they're like, yeah, in the context of the movie makes him as a jerk, but I assure you, if any of this happened to you in real life, you will be reacting just like that character.
I know, yeah, because I mean, you love John Candy, and they make him a nuisance, but they make him sweet for a reason. You want to hate him, and you want to get really frustrated, because I can imagine myself in Steve Martin's position. And, oh my God! but then it's John Candy, and dang it, you can't get mad at him. But then it's just the movie is almost. I really like this movie. For me, it was a little nerve-wracking at times, but that's the point. It's just to really demonstrate how unlucky this one man is, and he's just trying to get home to eat dinner with his family, and he just runs into a little bit of everything. And then, of course, you soon find out what exactly the title of the movie means, because that is what they have to go through. They have to go through every sort of transportation just to get him back to Chicago. But it's really just a matter of just patience. And then, just learning to love the characters and not just, I can't help but feel for Steve Martin's character. Oh my God.
See, and one thing I also find interesting about this movie is, like, even in the context of John Hughes' filmography, he had been in film for quite a while, like with this, before he did this movie. And like I said, it's with adults and not with teenagers. And one thing I find is interesting is that the characters are going back to Chicago, kind of like how I feel like John Hughes is going back to what his kind of roots were. Because even though the movie, it has its cute moments and stuff, it does have like some of that National Lampoon energy that I feel like his teen movies really lacked. So I feel like the metaphor of the movie going back to Chicago, it's kind of a metaphor for John Hughes' career of him going back to this place I feel like where he was at his peak that he only got to only a few times, in my opinion. I feel like, Christmas Vacation, obviously a classic, this, and like Ferris Bueller. Those are movies that, like, when he gets that right mix of earnestness and just super juvenile humor, I feel like you get a Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Absolutely, it is so genuine, and like the reactions are so genuine, and you just gotta love the reactions on Steve Martin's face. And it's hilarious, and the music is something I really like in this movie. It's just like that typical '80s music, and just whenever something's about to happen, and then Steve Martin makes that face, and then it's just that wonky little music that plays in the background that just really has to add to it. But I like it a lot. It is something. I don't know. I don't know what else to add.
John Candy is just he's the man. He is.
Right.
I feel like they do a really good job of trying to make him like really like unbearable. But then John Candy, and you've seen him in Uncle Buck. You've seen him in all these lovable characters. He was even in Little Shop of Horrors. He just makes these cameos, and you're just like, it's John Candy. Like, what are you doing?
I know.
But then, of course, Steve Martin, like, he does it so well. Like, I can't imagine what they were like on set, like, when John Candy was doing the things that he was doing. I would lose it, because it was just so funny how bad of, like, the luck that he has, like, he just go through. It's just so funny to me. But that's just, I don't think I have anything else to add about it.
I will say another thing, I guess, to me was something as like, this is a rare movie that really goes in on Thanksgiving as a holiday, which I feel like is really great, because you don't get a bunch of really great Thanksgiving films. There's like probably 3. And one of those is a parody in Grindhouse. But anyway, I would have to say this movie, one of the best movies of all time, 5 out of 5 for me personally.
Yeah, and at last, we have another John Hughes film, the notable The Breakfast Club. Now, The Breakfast Club is a story of 5 teenagers in a different social clique who all have detention on a Saturday morning. The kids learn more about themselves and each other in the high school detention and leave with a bond like they've never experienced before. Now, here's your trailer for The Breakfast Club.
It is now 7:06.
You have exactly 8 hours and 54 minutes to ponder the error of your ways. Any questions?
Yeah. Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
A brain, a beauty, a jock, a rebel, and a recluse.
Can't believe this is really happening to me.
Before this day is over, they'll break the rules.
Chicks cannot hold their smoke. That's what it is.
Bare their souls.
I'm a nymphomaniac.
Are your parents aware of this?
Take some chances.
Being bad feels pretty good, huh?
And touch each other in a way they never dreamed possible.
Why'd you do that?
Because I knew you wouldn't.
The Breakfast Club. They only met once,
I don't want to be alone anymore.
You don't have to be.
but it changed their lives forever.
I mean, I consider you guys my friends. I'm not wrong, am I?
Universal Pictures presents Emilio Estevez, Paul Gleason, Anthony Michael Hall, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, and Ali Sheedy in a John Hughes film.
Why are you being so nice to me? Because you're letting me.
The Breakfast Club.
So with The Breakfast Club, we get to see the various personalities of some of these unique, troubled teens. And honestly, what's not to love about reminiscing about the good and the bad times of high school? I mean, did you guys enjoy this film? Had to have.
I love this movie. I think it is perfect. I think John Hughes has a pattern for really showing like the struggles between classes. And I think that he did a really well job at this because you have, you know, the nerd, the jock, you have the basket case, you have the princess, and you have, you know, you have, you know,
a little bit of everything, for sure. And that it touches on each little social group that you've used to seeing in high school.
Yeah.
And we get to see a little bit in each one of their lives and how they're all messed up in their own little way, and that's totally okay.
And they all put on this facade, like, oh, but then they all have these things that they just go through, and they're like, hey, you're not alone. We go through the same thing. And you're like, wow, what? Someone from a different class goes through the same thing, and then they all like become friends, and it's just their journey of, you know, staying away from the guy. I can't remember his name because it's been a second, but I think it's just, oh God, it's so good. And then like the janitor, I love the janitor. I feel like he's an underrated character in this movie. He's just great. He's like, I'm the eyes and ears of this institution. Like, it's just like perfect. You're like, what are you doing? What are you doing there? But he knows everything, and he just, I think it's like, it's just perfect. Like, perfectly orchestrated, I think.
Yeah, I really think so too. I mean, I don't know what your opinions are, but they're probably not going to be as good as ours.
Well, probably not. Well, like, here's the thing. You know, you have a great 80s movie with like some of the best actors, some of the best writings about people from different classes all coming together and just realizing their differences. Too bad we're not reviewing The Outsiders. But we do have this movie, which I feel like has its moments. I mean, yeah, there's like certain things that are just embedded in pop culture. Obviously, John Hughes is just great at blocking, at staging, at having people have these super great lines. But what he's not really great at least in this film, I feel like is getting into that rich emotional complexity. Like, I feel like that's one of the reasons why Ferris Bueller is such a great movie, is because you have something like Cameron's story, and like you just feel it so much inside that it makes the funny moments funnier and the sad moments even sadder. In this movie, I didn't really feel that as much. I was just kind of like, I did enjoy it more than Pretty in Pink. And the reason I enjoyed it more than that is like, I do like the characters more. I like where they're coming from. I like the things they have to say. But afterwards, I feel a little hollow. Like, in Pretty in Pink, at least I hated someone. In this one, I was just kind of like, oh, they're cool.
Yeah, and it has a good ending for as far as you know, we see the pretty popular girl goes with the bad boy. The weird emo girl ends up going with the jock.
That's just something you don't see every day.
Yeah, but then we got the nerd. Now, where's he going? You know, like, he's the only one that doesn't really have that solid ending, and you know, he's one of the most lovable characters, I think.
He really is.
And you know, at the end, he's just sort of stuck with writing the essay that they all were supposed to do to begin with, and they're just like, "Hey, we're gonna go hook up with these guys, but you can finish the essay. That'll be your ending."
That's one thing I actually really like, though, because I like that, like, even though it's like, yeah, stereotypes are not generally cool, but you know, there are some that that do work out better than others. It's like, yeah, so people, you have to play to your strengths. And he did play to his strengths, you know? Like, it was like there was more to him than just being the nerd. But, like, you know, that was still a part of his personality. And one thing I also like about the film is it points out, just because they went through this experience. It's not that they're going to be these completely different people, but I do like that it's a movie about ultimately having empathy for other people.
Yeah. And learning a whole lot about tolerance, because in the beginning, of course, nobody talked to anybody. Everybody, nothing. They don't have anything in common as far as they know.
Nice to say to each other either. They're all really rude to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, none of them seem to like each other apparently. But yeah, and then in the end, they just sort of come together and they have that really cool moment at the end of the library after they, get done doing their illegal stuff, and then they have that, that really solid heart-to-heart with each other. And there's crying, and there's something that you wouldn't have expected to happen, but you're glad that it did, for sure. It's just wow, because now you see these vulnerable characters, and even the bad boy is just as vulnerable as the rest of them, despite this front he puts up. But he's got an awful home life, just like pretty girl has got problems with being too pretty. I don't really know. And then emo girl, she's a loner. She doesn't do anything, but she keeps to herself.
Nobody notices her.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they each have their own little problems, and they all present that to each other, in a sense. But this acceptance and tolerance that they all learn is pretty cool to watch, I think. Not saying it's the greatest movie ever, but I do really enjoy watching it, and rewatching it is just as satisfying. It really is.
I completely agree. I think the best part about it is when you watch it, you get to know the characters, you get to feel their stories, and then you're wondering why aren't we doing this in the world? If we stopped judging people based on appearance, we would get to know them and be like, wow, there's so much more to them than this. They have their own story. Everyone has a story, and that's the reason we act the way we do. So it's like the criminal, he's got a terrible home life, and that's why he acts the way he does. But really, he's a really caring person, and then the nerd, he's under a lot of pressure, and they're just just chill out, man. And the jock, he's kind of a bully, but then he kind of feels bad about it in the end. So you're they all have these feelings, and they realize why they're wrong, and then they're like, oh, we're all the same, we're not different. And it's just, I love it. I think it's perfect, perfectly orchestrated. Like I said, he shows the class, like I said, it's a pattern in John Hughes. He shows this class struggle. I mean, it's also similar to Some Kind of Wonderful. I believe he did that, and it was, the best friend, and he wanted a rich girlfriend, and it didn't really work out, and then so it's just the class struggle. He really he shows it so well, and I know that you're not a huge fan, Devontae, but I love it. I think he does so well with it.
Well, the thing is, I contrary to I said, I am a John Hughes fan. I believe it's just I feel like there are some movies where if we review Ferris Bueller, maybe it will probably come off more positive or something. Because there are some where I feel like it kind of coalesces into this thing where it's you feel all those things at once, including the humor in the story, or even just to go on with different filmmakers. So Saturday Night Fever, for example, is also a movie about class, where you have these characters, they're doing very ridiculous dance moves and stuff. But I feel like that movie, it digs in more. With this movie, I was like, oh yeah, I appreciate some of the jokes where they're going, but ultimately I didn't care for anyone. In Saturday Night Fever, they're willing to go to some places with some people, even your main character, to where you're wow, that's awful, but that's what an actual person would do. I feel like there are too many moments in the John Hughes movies, I guess, I'm not as fond of, where you have these moments where it's I guess this is what a person might be feeling, but a person might say that they're sad, even though people don't normally say that they're sad. Right. They'll normally say other things. I feel especially because he honed his filmmaking later in his career, I feel at this point, it was just more of a I really want to have a good scene. I really want to have good lines. If you show someone the clip from this movie, they're going to be oh, that was amazing. If you have people read from the script, it's going to be amazing for a scene. But as far as a cohesive movie, it doesn't really work. And also, this movie has one of the most laggy and worst second acts I've ever seen in the movie. One of the reasons, another movie from his era, Back to the Future, works because all three acts kind of feed into each other. This movie has a really good intro, getting everybody together. It does a really great introduction. I will say the ending is classic. Everyone loves that ending.
Yep, just that punch in the air on the football field, that just sort of captures the whole movie. Hey, we finished, detention on a Saturday. But unfortunately, that's all we could talk about on this huge array of John Hughes movies, and hopefully we've shed a little bit of light on his amazing works. And tune in next week for our edition of Disney Villains, our little special of that. And as always, I am Elizabeth Pegram.
I'm Devontae Banks.
And I'm Jeralyn Johnson. Don't forget about us.
And that's a wrap on Picture.